Hey there, blockheads, and welcome back. The third edition of the 0x. We're going to let it flow and talk about some of the latest news in blockchain and cryptocurrency. Andrew and Kevin, we're back again. Hey, buddy, how are you? Welcome back to the show.
Doing well. Getting the feel for this more flowy, open conversation format. I definitely feels a little different still. You know, like we have some idea of what we're going to talk about, but I'm not. I don't have the decades of experience that a Zyori does when it comes to just going with the flow.
Yep. Oh, there you are. You're back now. Yeah. No, absolutely. I feel you. It takes a little bit of practice, but you're a natural, Kevin. You're a natural. You got to lean into it. And you're full-time crypto now, so it's even easier. It's wild. Like I find myself having a lot of repeat conversations these days in a good way. Like there's a lot of salesmanship that's involved in being an evangelist for blockchain and crypto, and yeah, I guess that's part of the education process, right? You have to have these personal one-on-one conversations to really get the message across. And there is something like, I think we had a thesis going into this podcast series. And I think it was, we can make digestible, specific content around one topic, and that can somehow replace these one-on-one conversations that we've been having, because it's like, oh, you want to learn about DeFi? Here you go. Here's 30 minutes on DeFi in a nutshell. Boom. But that works sometimes, but I found it doesn't replace like all education conversations. Like everybody has a unique mixture of understanding, and I find if you watch like the first 15 new blocks in order, you get a really great picture. But if we just drop you into like episode 8, we always have to make assumptions of your foundational knowledge. And I've realized that a lot of people have very strange gaps. Like they have a pretty deep understanding overall. They understand like 75%, but that 25% blind spot is different for everyone. So you have to really calibrate what you're trying to explain around that moving target that is this variable blind spot. Have you observed that? Like any consensus there, Mr. Truffle?
I definitely, I might have mentioned this in another podcast episode, but I like the analogy of kind of like a Sudoku puzzle. Like crypto, you fill in little bits and pieces, you fill in some numbers here and there, but because it kind of spans, you know, like economics, computer science, like social sciences, like, I don't know, finance. It's hard to really even go into crypto with the necessary understanding that will actually lend itself well to you learning new things. But even then, once you're kind of starting off down the rabbit hole, it's just layers and layers and layers of concepts. And to your point about repeat conversations, the fun part as being the crypto guy in my friend group is trying to keep track of where everyone else is in that journey. So like when I'm talking with one person, I try to talk to them, you know, just given the sort of like level of interest or knowledge in it. So like I might talk about a topic with a software engineer that's, you know, a little more technical, but then someone that doesn't have that background, I try to cater it toward them. So kind of keeping track of like everyone's journey in crypto, it's not easy. And so a lot of times I do feel myself kind of having repeat conversations, but I definitely see as that as just part of like the job of educating, and it shows that over time in this space, like we'll get to a point where the base level is, you know, high enough where you can just talk to random people and they kind of have an idea of what NFTs are.
I guess you have a slightly more like behind the scenes type development position relative to me. I'm in the front lines in some ways in terms of like evangelizing Axie. But you also have the benefit, I'll put in air quotes, of you're in the Ethereum ecosystem. So you probably do interact with people that have a much more, should I say, unified sort of shared knowledge and shared scope of like the foundational layer of what you're building on. I'm over here on Ronin Island, which is like an amazing benefit most of the time, but there are some drawbacks, right? Like it's sort of like there's this wall there, and once you're in, you don't really want to leave, but you know, why would you bridge out? Because the transaction fees here are super low and things are pretty fun. Once we have the DEX, it'll be even more fun. But for a lot of folks like yourself that have been around for a while and you came from this generation of there's Bitcoin and there's ETH and everything else, I don't know, man. If we're talking real money, I'm keeping it on Ethereum and Bitcoin. You know, that's
I'm suddenly Southern.
Yeah, that's you. You got that Southern draw mentality, dude. You're like, I live in a multi-chain world. That's right, Bitcoin and Ethereum, bitch. That's two. I you know, think you'll deny that, but it's true to a degree, and I don't blame you, right? Like side chains are overall still kind of a new thing. It's a little scary. The security aspect is a little bit different. It's a totally different trade-off in that value proposition: speed versus security versus usability, all this kind of stuff, scaling. So yeah, there's still some barriers there, I guess, and that presents some expected, like there's less people evangelizing for my special little bubble inside of the blockchain and cryptocurrency sphere compared to Ethereum, right? Like you're working on a bigger slice of the pie. We're a quickly growing slice of the pie, but you know, we're not Ethereum size. Or AXS is still only like 25th in market cap or something. So we got a little ways to go.
Every single time I check out CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko and check AXS, it is like just shooting up there.
Utility tokens, man.
Yeah, I was recently chatting with someone on Twitter who was talking through, and I think it was the environment episode when you posted about it, and they asked if it was worth learning about Ethereum development. I think this was an engineer, or going to another blockchain in the meantime, while proof of stake works its way out, and kind of the environmental impact of Ethereum. It does its thing, and we can move past it. But I responded that, like, yes, I anticipate that this is a multi-blockchain world that we live in. And like, to your point, you live in the Ronin subset of that. I live closer to the Ethereum subset of that. But I even think of like the Ethereum subset as just more of an ecosystem. I think of other blockchains like Avalanche, like EVM compatible blockchains. So Avalanche, Polygon, Optimism, Arbitrum. And I think over the next year, when things like Connext roll out that can have payment channels between those layer 2 networks, I think that gets us even closer to this like multi-blockchain future. And so like the more tendrils that kind of meet at the different blockchains, I imagine that, like, given the size of Ronin and the size of Axie and everything, there's going to be a lot of blockchains and just like interested parties that want to bridge as much as possible. I know we had talked about this the one time, and I liked your take on it, which was that right now, given that Axie is its own, it is a bit more on its own island, but like that's kind of okay for the use case. I think in the short term, that's totally true. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be as composable as DeFi is, where, you have all these different little Lego blocks that people are just connecting to each other. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, how do you see the long term of Ronin playing out in the ecosystem?
Well, remember that Ronin, it's like a clone of MetaMask and Ethereum mixed into one. So it's like a side chain and a wallet all in this very similar and specifically compatible interface. And that's a big advantage, right? You just change out the 0x and replace it with Ronin, all lowercase and a colon, and that gives you like the exact same syntax in terms of interacting with the Ronin blockchain. So that's really helpful on the development side. It's really compatible in terms of bridging with ETH and just being part of that ecosystem, sort of like you put it. So I agree. While I do think we're going to live in a multi-chain universe beyond just Bitcoin and Ethereum, like when you look at Polygon, guess what? That's also an ETH clone, right? So you see this ecosystem that it extends beyond Ethereum. If you're worried about the environmental side, like Go do some work on Polygon, right? Go listen to the podcast where Vitalik is talking about Polygon. And I think that's what sold me on it, where the platform kind of has his blessing. He's like, I get it. You know, they have an idea. Their whole value prop is that they need to go to market quick. They made some sacrifices that I don't know if I would have made, but I understand why they made them. And they have a thing that works, and that's cool. So they get to do stuff, and there's some experiments there, and it has some use cases. And, you know, Ethereum is going to do what it's going to do when it's going to do it. I'm not worried about that. But in the meantime, it's cool when people do stuff that works, and it looks like it's working. You know, look how much money's on there. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but I think that overall is like a pretty damn metered take and representative of that broader view that Ethereum's about an ecosystem. And if you have good intentions and you have a useful product and it's overall having a net benefit, if it fits into that model of being a public good, I think play to earn also fits into that model. It's just this giant web of Ethereum and Ethereum adjacent applications that all work together in some way. Even if it's a side chain that has a bridge, it's still pretty damn cool. I think that has a much better prospect than like the Cardano model of coming up with your own language that's way, like, how many product cycles are you behind that ecosystem I just described, right?
Yeah. I mean, Cardano, I also put Solana in that bucket. I know you were excited to talk about Solana one of these episodes. Now, maybe that's the time. I think the reason why, so I try to map what we're seeing now in Web3 to the creation of the internet, or the creation of really like any kind of like heavy network effect type industry. And I wonder if like the Ethereum ecosystem itself, it's like this just conglomerate of like all these different blockchains that are all going to be more interconnected, more communication between them. Will that map out to being like the internet of blockchains, where there's this like the Ethereum virtual machine, like the EVM compatible blockchains becomes like the equivalent of like longer term, it just like has the network effects to like kind of surpass everyone? Or is it a situation where it's more closely mapped to like a Microsoft, Apple, Google, where it's like, you know, Solana, maybe it's like starting to pick up in the NFT world, and maybe it like pulls some of the use case for NFTs off of Ethereum while the fees are really high, and maybe that kind of like establishes its own niche. Is this going to evolve in a way that like that we're going to have this big one sort of like language that everything speaks, or is it going to be a situation where there are these kind of more like semi-competing, equivalents to like a Microsoft and an Apple? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Hearing you say that, for some reason, that makes me want to ask you this very weird question about TPS. And it comes to mind because I had a conversation in Denver with a whale in the crypto space about early investment mistakes. I think I was joking about my Litecoin maneuvers and how I sold it in the bear market right before the bull run and could have made a bunch of money. And I forget what his specific anecdote was, but the question that I want to ask you is about TPS. And this came up recently when I was in that event, MCon in Denver, and I was talking to a whale about it. And we were talking about early investment follies, and I was talking about my anecdote was selling Litecoin in the bear market right before the bull run. And he had some other anecdote about, I forget, was it Tezos or one
EOS,
of those?
Probably.
Or EOS, maybe.
EOS,
yeah. One of those, and it's like I got sold on the TPS thing. You know, at the time, I lost faith in Ethereum too. Like sort of similar logic to Bitcoin. Well, the Litecoin one's faster and easier, and to be fair, it was. So I invested in usability rather than the silver to the gold, right? The classic. It's that kind of a thing. But he admitted like that's sort of a noob trap. You know, you don't really understand that much, and you hear about these scaling things, and you think that all users are going to be practical, and that this number really matters, and like, yeah, it's 10 times faster than this one, and then you remember and realize, oh yeah, the best technology doesn't always win. It's like this game of marketing and also this acceleration of adoption, especially with technology. community, having users and developers and an ecosystem and demand that creates this feedback loop of like trust and desire and word of mouth. And the more people that use it, the more all those things grow, and the more they grow, the more people want to use it, and this whole thing fucking explodes. And it doesn't really matter if the better technology on the back end is superior, because it doesn't have that like first mover, early adopter feedback loop. And you can see this in many examples. Like Twitch was very much like that. In its early days, there were a lot of Twitch competitors like Own3D and whatever
Justin
else.
TV.
And well, Justin TV was the predecessor to Twitch, so that one sort of doesn't quite count. But a lot of them were like, oh, it was the race to get video that was HTML5. Like, oh, dude, we got HTML5 video. It's so much more efficient, less bandwidth, less processor usage. And it's like, yeah, but that doesn't matter. You don't have the community. You don't have Twitch chat. You don't have the emotes. You don't have the sunk cost of subs. You don't have the ecosystem. Nobody cares about the tech in that regard because it's too small of a difference. To suck the user base, you got to go like to the next level. You can't just meet the level and then go a little bit extra and just tune it up by like 5%. That doesn't meet the minimum requirement for the adoption cost for like people want to stay where they are and where their friends are, right? Like Dota versus League, it doesn't matter which one you like more in a vacuum, all things equal. If 4 of your friends play one of them, you're probably going to play that one also, because it's more fun to just play with your friends and be a team of 5 than it is to play like the quote objectively better game in your opinion and in your gaming preference. So,
I think I wanted to bring up EOS next because that whole like transactions per second conversation, the people that were really into EOS are now really into Solana. Like I remember I was at a convention, went to like a group dinner thing, and met a guy who was like really hard trying to sell me on EOS, and I was like, I'm not gonna buy it. Like, I'm not super into this idea. It was just very much like it recognized the scalability trilemma, right? So it recognized that you have like what is it? Decentralization, security. Now I gotta find it really quick.
Yeah, same. I'm bad at memorizing stuff. So yeah, it's security, scalability, and decentralization.
Yes. So they were totally fine, like making the cut of saying like we care mostly about security and scalability, and we are okay not being super decentralized. And Solana's making a similar thing. I remember like ironically when he was explaining EOS and how great it was, one of the co-founders of Solana was like at the dinner, and like when he found out about that, he like gravitated real quickly toward just like getting to talk to this guy. But I wonder if like how much of the bull market really affects how much, let me rephrase that again. How much of the things that we're seeing now in a bull market will actually kind of persist past it? Because like this is what happened in the last market cycle. EOS was like blowing up in the sense that like people were building some sort of gaming applications on it. I don't know. But then it really just, as soon as the market crashed, like everybody flooded away from it because it just like didn't have that necessary network effects to kind of like keep the flywheel going and keep people around when there was this other thing that like really had just been there from the very beginning. And so I do wonder, I'm always open to trying new things. And I think when I decide like what blockchains are worth my time, like it's not so much that I don't think Solana will persist. I so far it seems like Solana's doing better than EOS was in terms of like potentially being like something that persists through the next market cycle. No clue though, but I still haven't, it hasn't met my like internal math threshold for like me wanting to go buy NFTs on it. Maybe I will, who knows? Like I
mean, is there a number like what is like total value locked? I think is a good high level metric for some of like, you look at how much money is on QuickSwap, for example, and that's just one exchange. I mean, it's like the exchange on Polygon, right? But the numbers are big. And at a certain point, that does start to give me a little more confidence, right? Like there's that weird market cycle of trust where it's like, well, shit. I mean, if that's real, which it is, because we can see it on the blockchain, I guess it should be real, then that's a lot of capital that's locked up here and pretty trusted. Okay,
Yeah.
this isn't kiddie time shit. I think that adds to the argument for its security, all things equal, right? Not definitively, but
I think total value locked is a good way to go about it. And I don't know that I've like taken the actual time to think of it as like what will be the threshold where I pay more attention to a given blockchain. I mean, I think Binance Smart Chain, I felt similarly when DeFi summer was happening. A lot of the kind of more scammy, like quick pump and dump things were happening in Binance Smart Chain because it was just cheaper to use. And I think history doesn't always repeat, but it definitely rhymes. I just wonder how much I'll look back at Solana and be like, I should have paid more attention, or maybe it was just kind of another one of these like the hottest blockchain on the block doesn't actually end up sticking around too long. Who knows? That's what I like to try to speculate where I can.
I agree with you, because I think if you look at Axie a little bit retroactively, if you look at where it's at now, imagine if I had told you 3 years from now, or 3 years ago in 2018, like, dude, the future for this game is going to be making their own side chain, and this side chain is only going to be for this game. And maybe it could be expanded to other games like in the future when it's done, but like it's just going to be us because we're going to need it. And people are going to flock to play on our private blockchain. You'll be like, yeah, but what about like all the pain points to get there? Because you got to like onboard them into crypto, and then you got to like install this other thing, and then you got to bridge stuff to the side chain. And like, how are you going to... Don't worry about it, man. The game is going to be so cool, and the tokenomics are going to be so good that people are going to flock to this shit, because it's going to be the first intersection of where real tokenomics that hands the most of the money of the economy into the players, and an actually fun strategic game mesh to realize value on the blockchain through the power of NFTs. In 2018, you'd be like, well, good luck with that, man. I mean, for what would you have said for real, like in that era of blockchain, you know?
I would have just said, like, if you're not going to build directly on Ethereum, then I don't know what you're doing, bud. And I would have been discounting the necessity of scale at this point in the cycle, right? Like that is kind of what Axie did, right? They did build directly on Ethereum and then grew off of it out of necessity. And I think that progression was the necessary one for it to kind of like bootstrap community legitimacy, I guess. Like people saw that as like, okay, maybe this sidechain thing, like if you started there, or if if it were some other project that didn't go through that pathway, it might not have necessarily kind of like garnered the trust of the community. But I think in this case, like just knowing that it was like, you are clearly valuing credible neutrality by going to Ethereum, and so you kind of like agree with the underlying assumptions of like Web3 is going to kind of take over. I think that's why we've had such a hard time getting NFTs to start on layer 2s. I think that's like there's just enough of a mental leap for the community to like it's easier to go start on Solana and like post an NFT here than it is to like wait for, you know, Arbitrum adoption to begin bootstrapping. I think it's this like weird math that we all try to do in our heads, but I think Axie kind of went about it in just the right way.
Well, so I think you and I forget if we spoke about this off camera sometime, but for folks that are in the camp like yourself that have been around blockchain for a lot longer, you're more skeptical of side chains in general, because relative to your history, you've seen a lot of big talk and a lot of things come and go. So like your expected value proposition based on your anecdotal experience is very much like, dude, like 90% of side chains fail. So yeah, sure. If you think you're that 10% that's worth investing in, like, all right, that's a small target, bud. So yeah, you got to really get it right. That is a like overall in aggregate, if you look at just crypto projects, that's probably pretty fair cynicism and criticism. But in the case of Axie, I think the part that's underestimated again is that it is a pretty fun game, and that if you crack the code in onboarding new users into the ecosystem and make that process fun, like you gamify this economic aspect of learning about blockchain and setting up a wallet and getting access to other NFTs and other tokens. Those people are blockchain agnostic. All they care about really, they care about security above that like minimum threshold of, is my shit safe? Beyond that, they don't really prioritize decentralization. They care more about usability and scalability. Can all my friends play, and can we all use it, and can we handle the growth? And yeah, so like I get your perspective, but I also totally get that new user perspective where they go, well, why would I want to use Ethereum and pay for gas fees when I can use Ronin? It's literally free. You get 100 free transactions per day on Ronin. So it's like, to a new user, they don't even have the context to understand the back end of why Ethereum is still a value prop for like most power users, right? The people that have fucking Genesis Kongs. You know, I have floors at 200 ETH now. You missed out on that one, bozo.
Yeah.
Nice investing. Yeah, good one.
Yeah, I mean, watching, like, we talked about some of the early like JPEG summer things that were popping off. Watching like every single one of those on Twitter was like watching a train go by and then being like, oh crap, I guess I should have jumped on that one. And then watching another one go by and being like, what? Why is this happening? And then like another 10 of them go by and you're like, I don't understand what's happening. And I am like in the space nonstop. And then like it starts to just sink in, like, okay, I had assumptions around like, you know, NFTs being great for like you start out in the boring stuff, like, you know, you could use some sort of an NFT for like Uniswap v3 does, where it's like, oh cool, financial applications where you can like input data, and then like a domain name, so ENS, like NFTs are cool for that, and then like gaming to a general sense. But then like when the JPEGs hit, I was like, I don't know how to wrap my head around it. But I think eventually it started to make sense that in the same way that Bitcoin is just a meme and it's just like a store of value meme, that like you're I think JPEG summer and just like the idea of buying JPEGs, it's like people trying to identify which memes they think will be valuable and like be able to stand the test of time. Something like the Shiba, not Shiba coins. The original Doge meme image was recently broken apart and like fractionalized as an NFT. Like I understand that now more than I would really understand like the Dogecoin meme. Like, yes, these are both currencies that are like based on an image of a dog from Japan from like, I don't know, 10, 20 years ago or something. But they came into the universe in slightly different ways. And I think just like, I don't know, watching all this happen, it hurts my brain sometimes, but always in a good way.
See, but what blows my mind about people like you, Kevin, all right, I don't know how big your bags are, all right, but I know that you've been in blockchain law, like anybody that's been in from like 2015 or like earlier, like you've
17 for me.
Okay, 17. Still, you've probably bought some shit that's done okay. All right, you've probably got some Ethereums laying around. So like for some of these projects, like why didn't you just gamble on like some like half ETH minting, or like all right, one train goes by, another train goes by, but like for someone in your position, isn't it worth it just to ape into some of these at 1 ETH that are, yeah, I know it's a gamble and like some of them are going to go bust, but at what point, like I think you're more conservative than I am. I'm just asking you
gonna say that.
about
like,
that psychology of like, how do you resist the urge to not just hop aboard some of these fucking trains, dude. Just live a little. Just jump in. Just pull the lever, man.
I think that's it. Like, I think I am just generally a little more conservative. Like, I do some stuff for fun. And like,
I sometimes have fun.
I sometimes. Yeah, basically, that's what I'm trying to say. But like, for the most part,
I'm hip. I'm cool.
I'm a little. I try to be like a conviction investor, and I think it's hard to do that 100% of the time.
So you're better than me. That's what you're saying. You only invest with conviction, and I'm an ape. That's what you're saying.
Yes, you're just an ape. No. You saw in the Discord the one day I bought that little random number N project one.
Oh yeah.
Pulled the lever on it. I went full degen. I was like watching the price go up. I'm like, damn it! Like,
make it
the
big?
FOMO is actually gonna happen. No.
Oh. No.
Floor like cut in half. But even even just like that experience of it, I think that like opened me up a little bit more to just like be more risky. And then I started poking around with the Sedona NFT. Yeah, but it was fine. Like, going into it kind of knowing that I'm totally open to losing that amount of money is fine. Yeah. The Kia Sedona NFT meme, that was another recently one I started to poke around with. And then
I mean, you got to think, right? Let's say I come back to Jersey and we go to Atlantic City for a night or a weekend.
Yeah.
You're definitely going to put $100 on the table at some point for blackjack or roulette or some dumb shit. You know, we're going to have a little bit of fun. And I know there's most NFTs are more than like $100 or something, and it is different, but still, I draw those comparisons. I mean, I don't know. Sports betting is legal in Colorado, so I get down sometimes. I like putting a couple bucks on the old pig skin. You know, it's a good way to spend a Sunday.
It's definitely one of those things, though, that takes a certain change in mentality. I remember when I bought my first phone application, like smartphone application, because prior to that I was only doing like the free versions of everything, and then I finally got to one where I was like, damn, like this costs $2, like I really want it. I'm gonna splurge, like I'm gonna do it. And then as soon as I did it, I was like, why have I been fighting this for so long? Like, this is something that's gonna give me value. Like I should just change my mentality about it. So I think over time, similar in the NFT space, I'm more open to changing my mentality about
I think
it. But
that's part of why you and I always got along, even like before we were like really friends, but we were just like acquaintances in classes in university and stuff. Because I was like that in college, where I was very, very cost conscious in every regard. Like, I would go to Wendy's and buy like just the burger, no fries, no drink, because they were marked up too much. You know, I was always looking to, go to Atlantic City, have 2 Long Islands, and that's it, because, beer's overpriced and Long Islands are the best dollar per alcohol value. Like, you're always looking for the edge, and, the art of getting a good deal. Ah, man, I love it. It feels good. Anyway.
I mean, I feel good though too, knowing when I experience something that like does do decently well. I bought my little robot NFT. Never gonna sell that little bad boy, but the floor of it, I think I bought it at like 0.8 ETH, and the floor last time I checked was like 7 ETH or something. So I was like, all right.
So this is listen, classic.
This is what winning feels like.
Noob investor mistake. Next time, buy 2 robots, because the robot's awesome, and you buy a robot you like, and you buy a robot that you go, hey, this robot's okay, and you got the one that nobody touches, and you got the other one that you sell it. Yeah, you take the 10x exit.
I think I'm stuck with the one that no one's gonna touch. Well, and I don't want to sell them.
That's a lot of my collector's axes. I started picking up a couple duplicates, and that's why I spent all my AXS, because I was like, all right, I'm not going to do this again. I'm not going to buy. Like, I love my Mystic, but it doesn't matter what that thing's worth, because nobody's touching my Mystic.
I think that's the component that people from the outside may not anticipate. People that don't actually go fall down this rabbit hole and like buy a JPEG, they won't appreciate the kind of like social consensus thing that happens, where it's like you start to get attached to it, and that like other people have their axes that they're kind of attached to, and it starts to kind of become part of you. And maybe like it's a little JPEG of a robot right now, but who's to say down the road, maybe we'll see some like animated versions of robots,
Yeah.
or in Axes, I think that's a little more realistic. Like,
Yeah,
this
dude.
could be
I'm gonna go into
more interesting.
Decentraland, and my Axies are gonna follow me around like a pack of wild dogs, and it's gonna be awesome. And dummies like you that don't have Axies are gonna be like, "Damn, that Ronin integration's
Got so
awesome."
many Axes. Yep.
I'll tell
That's
you,
just, imagine you hitting the server and just exploding with
dude,
like 100 Axes behind
you're
you.
one of these people that fits into the category that I've recently been trying to figure out how to sell en masse. And you're the kind of guy where you collect some things. You certainly have the disposable income to buy a collector's Axie, even like a cheap one, like an entry level Frosty, or like a 1 or 2 part Japanese Axie, like a 1 ETH 2-part Japanese Axie, right? It's a great entry point. That's something that's pretty rare, right? There's like maybe 800 of them or 1,200 of them or something. Never going to be made again. And you're not going to battle, right? I know you're not going to play Axie. You're not going to grind SLPs. And that's fine, right? That's not for every. I don't really grind SLP either, right? I have some arena teams, but I'm not in the arena every day. I'm busy doing other stuff. But you could have that one Axie. You could have that 1 ETH investment, have that skin in the game, get that one tweet out there. That'll be your first tweet to get 300 retweets of like, this is my Axie. I'm Kevin, and nobody's touching this Axie. That could be you.
I feel like you had it in the cards as soon as you reached out to me and you're like, yo, do you want to start a crypto podcast? Somewhere in the back of your head, you were like, this is going to be my master plan. And by episode 24, I'm going to get him to buy this. Mystic Axie.
A Mystic, that's like a 30 ETH floor. That's a great investment.
Watch that one from the sideline.
You really should. I think that would be the smartest decision of your life, is to pick up a Mystic right now. In 5 years, when you're at my wedding, you're going to be like, Zyorii, you're right. Now that Mystics are 500 ETH a pop, I really wish I'd bought one when it was 30, when I could have. You were so right. All right.
None of this is financial advice.
No, it's not. This is a 5-year trajectory of what Kevin should be doing, because this is the real thing. Mystics, I think, will become like a badge of honor in the community as we get closer to these like Web3 integrations and like NFTs in profile pictures. You think about these profile picture collections. Most of them are 10,000, right? There's only like 1,400 Mystics or 1,800 Mystics. So they're more rare than these other things. And in terms of being that badge, like my scholarship is branded after the Mystic. That whole thing is like, her name is Soraya and our scholarship are Sorayans, dude. They're fucking mermaids. Soraya means mermaid in Portuguese. She's an aqua. It's a whole branded thing, right? So like these Mystics are rare enough and iconic enough that if the Axie universe continues to scale and hits like a few more exponential growth spurts, they really are going to be this super rare, precious resource that I think are worth that kind of iconic branding. It's more than just a fancy NFT. It's like, damn, dude, she's got a little personality. She's spicy. She's the leader of our little group. I don't know, dude.
I always liken Mystics to in Pokemon, just the legendaries, and seeing people walk by. Did you ever get a chance to play Poke MMO? It was
no, that sounds awesome.
Someone took the ROMs and overlaid multiplayer on top of like the regular Pokemon, and so you could like basically walk around, play Pokemon Red, or I think they copied over some of the later ones, but like the regular 2D adventure Pokemons. And you would see other people running around, and so they'd have their little Pokemons behind them.
That's cool.
Behind them. But yes, I always liken them to people wandering around with like their legendaries, and everyone kind of like looking and, oh my God, that guy has the only one of this Pokemon that exists on the server.
That's what it'll be like on land. You got to have those real fancy ones. Like the triple part Japanese one I bought. There's only 2 Axies that exist with that combination of triple parts. That's pretty cool, dude. That's like that's a special little thing. So I'm just saying, you could be part of the Axie community by just having one Axie and not really playing and just being like, yeah, I got an Axie. And when you show up at NFT NYC and they're like, well, let me see it. You can show it off. Be like, yeah, it's a 2-part Japanese. It's pretty cool. I think the floor on those is going to go up pretty big. Yeah, You could pretend to be an Axie guy just like that with one collector's Axie. Boom, you're in the club, and you're a card carrying member. That's all I'm saying. I think a lot of people conflate it with like, I don't want to play some stupid card game. It's like, that's cool, man. I get it. Not everybody likes card games. Not everybody likes games in general, but Axie is a universe, man. It's a universe. You got to think about the future of the universe. And the nature of blockchain is that the universe might get progressively more expensive, bud.
Well, I think so. I'm on board with everything you said. I think last episode I was like, "Oh my God, let's go buy an Axie before this weekend." I didn't get to it. I know. I'm on board. That's fine. The one thing that I see a lot, and I'm not necessarily saying that this will be the case about Axie, because I genuinely don't know.
Hit me with it, dude. Hit me with the criticism. Give me the good FUD.
Yeah, the comparisons of like, this is like, there are X many of a thing, and if you compare that to how many punks there are, like, this is more rare, and therefore this is like the hidden diamond in the rough. I see it to some, like, I see it in the case of Axie, like there is this entire roadmap of functionality and like plan and land gameplay and like stuff that's kind of being built. And that kind of gets me excited about it. When it comes to profile picture JPEGs, that's where I kind of start to draw the line, where I'm like, okay, a punk versus a whatever,
an ape?
winter, an ape, or what was the new one, like winter bears or something.
Yeah,
like
the seals. You gonna join the Uwu crew, bro?
Yeah, everyone's been talking about the Uwu crew lately. I don't know. I don't like.
I bought 3 of them.
Okay. Maybe I just need to like do more.
See, Uwu crew is pretty cheap, dude. Floor's like 0.15 or 0.2. Just buy one. Like, what do you? Come on, dog. Just live a little.
I have fun sometimes.
Yeah, that's cool. You play Dungeons and Dragons, play some hacky sack, drink a beer, and then get to bed early.
I do. I have my little Dungeons and Dragons, a little dice tower up there.
Not to derail you here, maybe one of the last points. I don't want to go on too long, but do you think there's any merit to the digital pet thing? Because I had a conversation with an investor this morning that was talking about one of the bullish aspects that is part of their thesis is this idea of like younger generations, more digital nomad mentality. Pets are harder, expensive, whatever. Digital pets are easy to take care of. They're not the same, but they're on that spectrum. You have a pet. I know you care for him very much. Do you see any of that crossover at all? Do you think I'm crazy that I keep a tab open on my laptop with my Mystic, and sometimes when I'm feeling blue, I just tab over and go, oh, there she is.
I'm here for it. Now, I you don't have to sell me on digital pets. Like, I love my Tamagotchi. Recently, the founder of Loot did a thing called "We're All Gonna Make It Gotchi" or Wamagotchi or something, and it was like a group virtual pet where everyone in the Ethereum lands had to feed it, and then it eventually died.
Okay,
which is pretty sad. Rest in peace.
That is.
But yes, I like the premise of, you've got your little digital friend.
Okay, all right. I'm glad, because I do think I think it's more subconscious than people realize, but it's a factor. It's one more thing vying for Axie that they feel animal-like, and they definitely feel like little pets and little companions, and that's part of the collector's appeal, I think, for sure. I do agree with you, though. I don't think it's 1-to-1 in terms of the numbers of Mystics, but I think it's like worth thinking about those comparables and trying to judge if there's a gap there, and thinking about like if Axie were still on Ethereum, what would Mystics be worth compared to them all being on Ronin instead, right? I think that does shift the economics a little bit. We could argue about the degree all day, but it definitely has some kind of an impact, I think.
Yeah, I can imagine just like being able to do things for free is going to totally change the economy. Yeah, I mean, I think a similar like design decision that I'm anticipating will be around loot for adventurers. There was the 8,000 pieces of loot that went out when it first started, and then there was like a bunch of other clones, forks of loot. There was like Bloot with a B, and More Loot was the one that the same guy made afterwards, to just like, here's a bunch more so people can actually play this whenever it's a real thing. And then so I think of it as kind of like these tiers of like, you're real cool if you've got a regular loot. You're kind of cool if you got a more loot. And then there was the final one was synthetic loot, which is just like literally any Ethereum address. Like you can just go click a button and it'll see what loot you have on that. So I think Axie's, you probably have a similar design like structure decision that you have to make when you're trying to figure out like how many of a given type of Axie you're gonna create in the ecosystem.
I mean, luckily that's like kind of done. All these collectors things, that's because these were made like breeding events back when the game wasn't very popular. So that was a great way to calibrate it. We haven't done a breeding event in a while. The Mystics are all part of the Origins that there's still some of those tokens that can be rolled, but I think Sky Mavis owns most of them. And like there's only going to be, I think at most probably like 5 more Mystics ever rolled, something like that. Maybe 10 if you rolled all of the tokens, because you have to burn 5 of the, is it Axie Origin coin, AOC? You have to burn 5 of them to roll an Origin Axie, and an Origin Axie has like a 30% chance to have any Mystic parts. It could have multiple, but that's like crazy rare. And there's, technically it's possible for there to be a 6-part Mystic, and we only have 4-part Mystics. Nobody's even rolled a 5-part. So, yeah. So technically there will be a few more, but not a lot. But yeah, so that's the control, is that like there's no more of that shit. Those are relics of the past before the game was popular, and that's what makes them cool collector's items. It's genius, bud.
Yeah, makes sense.
Anyway. All right,
that's a good place to leave it.
Yeah, sorry to hijack the episode to talk about Axie so much, but it's on the forefront of my brain, dude. So you know, it's bound to happen.
0x episodes. 0x episodes will just be defined by you trying to get me to buy Axies.
Yeah,
that's fine with me.
You know, just wait. I had my artist friend pick up same argument, right? He was the guy that he was holding a bunch of Cardano. I got him to sell 70% of it to buy Ethereum, AXS, and some starter Axies. And he's the guy. Did I say this before? Or he's a quadriplegic, so he's a mouth painter.
You did talk about this in one of them.
Yeah, he bought the Axies with the little mouth that looked like the toothpick thing, so it kind of looks like a paintbrush.
That little anecdote I think you didn't mention.
That's I recommended a couple, and he bought all 3 of them, and it's just like, all right, that is technically a team. They're shitty in battle, but he bought like 3 collector's Axies because they kind of like identify with his thing. It's like you tweet that, it's like, bro, that's an easy 100 retweets right there, you know, easy content. Yeah. So I got your back, bud. But no, it's a pleasure. As you mentioned before, though, never financial advice. Of course, be responsible with your money and your investments. It's always tempting, but yeah, don't spend more than you're willing to lose. I think that's a great rule of thumb. Kevin, my lad, it's always a pleasure. Make sure you check out the last episode that we did in the numeric series here, episode 19, the environmental one. It's a great one. It's a good one to link to your friends, to link to the fudders. We talk about a lot of the headlines, I guess, around the environmental concerns and criticisms, tried to make it digestible and snappy. So do it to it, you rascals. We'll catch you on the next one.
Peace.